You are not okay, and you have not been okay for a while. But nobody knows that, because you are very good at this. The performance of okay. The morning routine that looks like discipline. The replies that come back fast and sound normal. The face you put on for the people around you that is so convincing that sometimes even you forget for a moment that it is a performance. And then the moment passes, and you are alone. And the thing you have been carrying, the thing with no name, the weight that does not go away when the day goes well, or the week goes well, or the month goes well, is still there, right where you left it, waiting. This video is about that thing, about what it actually is, about why you are carrying it alone, about why the strongest looking men are almost always the ones carrying the heaviest things in private, and about what to do with it. Not the version that sounds good, the version that is actually true. Stay with me, because what I am about to say in the next few minutes is the thing you have needed someone to say to you directly for a very long time. Before I go any further, I need to say something that this video will mean nothing without. I see you. Not the performance version, not the version you show up as in the rooms you walk into. The version that exists in the hours nobody sees. The one that wakes up at 3 a.m. with thoughts that have no solution. The one that sits in the car for an extra few minutes before going inside, because inside requires the performance to restart, and the car is the only place where it does not. The one that has everything a man is supposed to have, or is working toward everything a man is supposed to have, and still feels a specific emptiness in the middle of it that he cannot explain to anyone. Because who do you say it to? The world built a version of masculinity that does not include that conversation, that equates strength with silence, that calls the performance of okay character, that taught you from the time you were young enough to absorb the lesson that the weight is yours to carry, alone, without complaint, without the visibility of struggle that is available to everyone around you, and somehow not available to you. This is not weakness. This is the specific condition of a man who was taught to be strong, in a world that never taught him what to do with the weight that strength requires him to carry. Here is the truth that the statistics will never fully capture. There is a male loneliness epidemic happening right now. Not the kind that looks lonely from the outside, the kind that is completely invisible, the kind that exists inside men who are surrounded by people, who have partners and families and colleagues and social connections, and who are nonetheless carrying a specific aloneness inside that none of those connections are reaching. 1 in 4 men right now does not have a single close friend he can be honest with. Not one person he can call at 2 a.m. Not one person to whom he can say the thing he is actually thinking without editing it for palatability, without adjusting it for how it will land, without performing the version of himself that the relationship requires. 1 in 4. And that number has been rising for 30 years. The world got louder. Men got more connected on the surface. And underneath the surface, the aloneness got quieter and more complete. Because the noise of connection was covering it, making it harder to name, easier to perform around, easier to carry invisibly for years, before it finally became undeniable in a way that could no longer be managed. Here is what the weight actually feels like from the inside. Because most descriptions of male struggle talk about it from the outside, from the statistics, from the observable symptoms, from the clinical language that is accurate but does not land in the body the way the real thing does. From the inside, the weight does not feel like sadness. Not exactly. It feels like a specific kind of flatness, a muting of the things that used to matter, a distance between yourself and the life you are living that is hard to explain because the life itself does not look wrong. The job is there, the relationships are there, the routine is there. Everything that is supposed to produce the feeling of a life well lived is present and accounted for. And yet, something is missing. Not a thing you can point to, not a loss you can grieve. just a sense that the version of you living this life is not quite the version of you that was supposed to. That somewhere between the boy who had a specific feeling about what his life was going to be and the man you became while building it, something got lost, and you cannot find it, and you are not sure you are allowed to look. Because looking requires admitting that what you have is not everything you need. And admitting that requires a vulnerability that nobody in your life prepared you for. The Stoics were the first philosophers in history to take this seriously, not as weakness, as the central challenge of a conscious life. Marcus Aurelius wrote in private journals that were never meant to be seen about exactly this. About the weight of carrying something that could not be shown. About the distance between the public life he maintained and the private life he actually inhabited. About the specific loneliness of a man who was surrounded by everyone and known by almost no one. He was the most powerful man in the Roman Empire. He had access to anyone. He was surrounded by thousands of people at all times, and he wrote to himself in private about feeling alone in a way that the company of others could not reach. About carrying questions that the role he occupied did not allow him to ask out loud. About the weight of maintaining a self in public that was not fully continuous with the self he inhabited in private. He did not have a name for what he was describing. But every man who reads those passages 2,000 years later knows exactly what he meant, because they are carrying it too. The specific weight of a man whose interior life is not accessible to the world around him, and who carries that inaccessibility as a feature of strength rather than a symptom of something that needs to be addressed. Here is what I want to say to the man who has been carrying this for a long time. The carrying is not the problem. The invisibility of the carrying is, because when the weight is invisible, it cannot be shared. And when it cannot be shared, it cannot be lightened. And when it cannot be lightened, it accumulates, year by year, season by season, until the accumulated weight of years of invisible carrying begins to cost a man things he cannot afford to lose. His health, his relationships, his capacity to feel the things that were supposed to make the building worth it, his connection to the purpose that was supposed to make the performance necessary. The solution is not the performance of vulnerability that the modern world sometimes sells. The solution is not broadcasting your interior life to anyone who will listen. The solution is finding one person, one, who can handle the weight of the real version, not the performing version, not the edited version, the actual version, and letting them, just one. Because the Stoics knew something that the modern isolation epidemic is proving again. The weight a man carries alone eventually becomes heavier than any man was designed to carry. But the weight shared with even one person who can actually receive it becomes possible. Not light, possible. And possible is enough to continue. Here is the practical truth that I want to close with. The fact that you have been carrying this is not evidence that you are weak. It is evidence that you were trained to be strong in a world that never trained you to be honest. That you absorbed a definition of masculinity that included the weight, but excluded the conversation about it. That you became very good at something that was always going to cost you, the performance of okay. And that performance served you. In the moments when the room needed you to be okay, when the people around you needed the stable version, when the role required the composed face and the steady voice and the certainty that everything was going to be fine, the performance served you. But you are alone now, in the space between the performance and the next performance. And in that space, I need you to hear something that the performance never leaves room for. You are allowed to not be okay. Not as a permanent state, not as a surrender, not as an abandonment of the strength that has carried the people around you, but as a moment of honest acknowledgement to yourself that what you are carrying is real, that it is heavy, that you have been carrying it for a long time, and that the carrying does not have to be invisible forever. Find the one person, the one who can handle the weight of the real version. Let them. Not because you are weak, because you are human, and because the weight you have been carrying alone was never designed to be carried that way. You were never supposed to do this alone, and you do not have to. If this found you at the exact moment you needed it, subscribe. We build here every single week. Drop a comment. Are you carrying something right now that you have never told anyone about? Just drop yes. You do not have to say anything else. You are not alone in this, and you never were. See you in the next one.